Greetings all, I hope everyone is well and all welcome. Epiphanius testimony and the enigma of Yeshua Notzri. Okay, so we're going to find out today how there are actually quite a few Christians who didn't know who had competing ideas of when Jesus, the Nazarene, or Jesus, the Gnostic, informer of greatness and the bringer of love and truth and stuff, was what came around. I think it's quite interesting because there's so many competing ideas here. It shows us how difficult really it was to pin Jesus into the historical record, and it's only, of course, with the Orthodox Church that we get specific times. But again, so many problems with trying to find that Jesus in the timeline. Refer back to the video I put out just a few days ago on the Dead Sea Scrolls and these other caves where no evidence whatsoever can be found about Jesus Christ. So here we go. Introduction. In the formative centuries of Christianity, belief in when the Christ had appeared was far from unanimous. While the emerging Orthodox Church fixed the ministry of Jesus under Tiberius Caesar and Pontius Pilate, numerous sects, especially Jewish, Christian and Gnostic, proposed strikingly different chronologies. Some placed the Messiah in the Hasmonean era, a century earlier, while others taught that Christ manifested repeatedly across history. These variant chronologies reveal how fluid the early Christian imagination was before dogma crystallized. This essay surveys the key testimonies focusing on Epiphanius of Salamis and his report of sects dating Christ to the reign of Alexander Jannaeus, 103 to 76 BC, then compares these to the rabbinic figure of Yeshua Notzri, whose story parallels the Gospel Jesus, yet belongs to the same Hasmonean period. Okay. Epiphanius and the Hasmonean Christ. So this is a really good candidate for Jesus Christ that actually may have appeared in the historical record, but obviously 70 years plus too late, too early, if we're talking about Notzri. Remember, Notzri means of Nazareth, or from Nazareth. Epiphanius...
It's the problem that just because Celsus assumes Jesus...
What are you doing? Epiphanius Panarian, written by Epiphanius in 375 CE, is our richest catalogue of early Christian sects in several passages. He describes communities who believe that Christ appeared not under Rome but under the Hasmoneans. This is what he says. They say that Christ came to be in the days of Alexander Jannaeus, Panarian 29:3-3. Okay. In Panarian 51:22-9, he adds, others among them say that Christ appeared in the time of Alexander Jannaeus, the king, while yet others assign him to the reign of Herod. Okay, so yeah, we got both there, right? But and in Panarian 30:16-7-9, they call him the Christ, but they declare that he came in the days of King Jannaeus and that he was not born of a virgin. Epiphanius attributes these ideas to Ebionites, Nazorians, and Akelicites, who he accuses of confounding generations and reigns. Their Gospels, he says, were in Hebrew, interesting, and differed from the canonical ones in time and order from Matthew. Now, it's interesting, isn't it, that he says these are in Hebrew, close, we would assume, to Hebrew affairs. Yet the Gospels are written in Greek and a very long way from Judea, yet they're the ones that are supposed to be to furnish us with the truth, right? Jerome de Virius Lastrubus, two such variants chronologies likely reflect an older tradition. Jewish expectation that the messianic teacher had arisen in the Hasmonean age, but perhaps the same teacher of righteousness of the Dead Sea Scrolls, though, right? So the teacher of righteousness being someone, I think they're more like an epithet or a title given to people, we would assume, through the ages, and it's been used to describe James, the just, and Jesus, but it's as far as the Jews were concerned, they're not talking about Jesus. Cyclical and timeless Christ here. So other groups reject any fixed chronology at all. In the Gnostic and Docetic traditions, Christ repeatedly descended through history, right? The Nacenes taught he appeared in Adam and in each generation to those worthy of him. That's Hippolytus Refutation 5:7. Valentinian and Basilidian teachers claim that that Christ descended upon Jesus only temporarily, mimicking John actually. Irenaeus Against Heresies 1 and 2. Carpocratians saw Jesus as a reincarnation of a soul that had lived among the wise men of antiquity. Irenaeus again 1:25. Marcion claimed that Christ descended suddenly at Capernaum without nativity. Tertullian versus Marcionum 4:7. So of these traditions, the incarnation was a metaphysical event recurring through time, not a single historical episode. And who comes first, really, we do not know. And there are so many more Gnostic sects that we could, on balance, say that maybe one of them came first, and Paul seems to have been one of these Gnostics. Orthodoxy would later, and also the Catholic epistle writers maybe, and I found Clement II just the other day. Again, it's so it's mostly non-existent on an historical Jesus. The second Clement, not written by the first Clement. Again, the same deal. It's extremely weird. Orthodoxy would later insist that such beliefs were heretical precisely because they made Christ timeless or cyclical. Well, we all know Jesus Christ is inside, right? And that incarnation of Jesus can be felt within, just like so many gurus and sages past. That's the universalist approach here. The rabbinical Yeshua Notzri, the Talmudic figure Yeshua Notzri, shares several features with the Gospel Jesus, but belongs to a strikingly different chronology. In Sanhedrin 107b and Sota 47a, he appears as a disciple of Joshua ben Perachiah, a sage of the Hasmonean period, so circa 100 BCE, right? Circa that kind of time period, so 100 years out. Thus, Yeshu lived roughly a century before the canonical Jesus. In the Sanhedrin 43a, he is accused of sorcery and executed on the Passover Eve. A motif that unmistakably echoes gospel tradition. So, let's have a look here at some of these parallels. Yeshua Notzri, Jesus the Nazarene, okay? Yoseho Natsorius or something, the identical epithet here. Identical, Jesus of Nazareth, or Jesus the Nazarene, as he is called in the Gospels as well. Teacher, Joshua ben Perachiah, Joshua and then John the Baptist, both have a mentor before ministry, okay? Accused of sorcery now, yes. And yes, Mark 3:22, again, same charge. Executed on a Passover Eve, yes, Mark, and yes, the Sanhedrin 43a. Shared timing. Followers called disciples, yes. 5 are named in Yeshua Hanotri's account. Yes. 12 in Jesus's. Conflict with authorities, well, yes. The Sanhedrin, of course, are in conflict with both Jesus and Yeshua Notzri. Parallel structure here. A time period. That's what's out. Okay, Hasmonean period against the Roman period, a century apart. Many scholars. Herford, Christianity in the Talmud and Midrash, 1903 now. Klosner, Jesus of Nazareth, 1925, going back a bit, and Eisenman, James, brother of Jesus, a book I have, 1997, note that the Talmudic Yeshu and the sectarian Jesus under Jannaeus, reported by Epiphanius, could reflect the same underlying memory. A 1st century BC teacher condemned for magic and heterodox teachings. If you want a Jesus in the historical record, well, this might be your guy. If we remove the mythology that comes later on, this could be him. Orthodox standardization under Pilate. The fixation of Jesus' death under Pontius Pilate became central to Christian creed making. All 4 canonical Gospels place the Passion under Pilate, and the Apostles' Creed enshrines this suffering under Pontius Pilate. Nowhere attested anywhere else in the Roman records, or anywhere else until basically the 2nd century and well into the 2nd century. Ignatius, of course, I think Polycarp as well, talk about Pilate, but they don't appear in the historical record until Irenaeus reports them. Irenaeus, again, someone we can't really trust. By synchronizing Jesus and with Roman history, Christian writers such as Eusebius sought to give the new faith a firm chronological foundation. Alternative chronologies, those under Jannaeus or the Hasmoneans, were consequently marginalized and condemned as confusion or heresy. So synthesis and implications here. Epiphanius records Christians who believe Christ came under Jannaeus. Jerome confirms that the Gospel of the Hebrews differed in time and order. So the Gospel of the Hebrews, not the epistle, but the Gospel. Again, very interesting and fairly Gnostic. Gnostic and Marcionites saw Christ as recurring and ahistorical. Buddha was a Christ. Krishna might have been a Christ. I might be a Christ, I'm kidding. Rabbinic tradition preserves a figure named Yeshu Notzri who lived and died in the same Hasmonean period. The overlap between Hasmonean Christ and Notzri here suggests that early Judaism and Christianity may have shared a memory of a pre-Roman messianic or prophetic figure, later assimilated into the canonical Jesus tradition. The Orthodox chronology, fixed under Tiberius and Pilate, was a deliberate act of harmonization, historicizing a Christ event and aligning it with imperial time. I forgot to mention as well, he's stoned to death, Notzri, but he's then hung up or piked, or Stauros, I think is the name that is used, maybe. Certainly in the Greek, I would assume this was Hebrew though. But this means basically piked. So you have a relationship there to crucifixion, though it is maybe a bit misleading to say that. And this was the custom for dealing with rebels and heretics and so on. In ancient Judaism, you hung them up on a stake or on a tree for a day, I think, and then they were cut down. So again, in somewhat of a perhaps potential similarity there. Anyway, conclusion. The historical Jesus, known to Orthodoxy, was not the only Christ conceived by early believers. I think I'll leave that there. I don't want to recap too much. So the diversity of these chronologies exposes the fluidity of early Christology and the later effort of the Church to fix one authorized timeline under Roman rule. Beneath the official version may lie echoes of older forgotten messianic movements whose memory persisted in both Christian and Jewish sources as the enigma of Yeshu HaNotzri. I'll leave that there for you guys to think about and ponder on. Yes, interesting though, isn't it? So what can we say on that? Yes, I think I'm done there, but okay, just an interesting something to ponder on. There are so many Christians here who were not sure at all in the early times of when Jesus was born, many giving different ideas. Clearly this is a Jewish story. Christians today will say that yes, it's Jewish. We have Jesus ben Ananias, don't forget. We have Jesus ben Gamala, similar people, rebels, not tax evaders, but you know what I mean in Gamala's case. And ben Ananias, of course, they're showing how closely in Josephus the trial and death line up fairly well, so I'll just leave that there anyway. What can we say? Peace out.